The big budget maximalist A-lister Blockbuster is a favorable institution in cinema that has continued to dominate the cinematic landscape for over half a century, whether it be 1977's Star Wars, 1988's Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or 1999's The Matrix. Blockbusters have come in so many forms that have pushed filmmaking boundaries and ushered in new techniques that have continued into today's latest releases. And while we continue to glom onto these modern classics, we sometimes forget where we came from, where the idea came to show evolved creatures with combined visual mediums to create an illusion of singular reality that lives and breathes longer than most people do. Well, let's take a little boat ride, buddy, back to the king who started it all. The one who was responsible for creating the modern Hollywood blockbuster with its plot, sound, and visual effects. I'm talking about King Kong by Merian C. Cooper and Ernest B. Sodstak, I hope that's how you say it, is an incredible feat and moment in cinema. To refresh your memory, the film focuses on a film crew led by director Carl Denham, Jack O'Driscoll, and actor Ann Darrow to visit the mysterious Skull Island to film a rumored being that has never been captured before, Kong. As the crew arrives on the island, they meet a native tribe that prays to and offers sacrifices to Kong. Ann gets caught in the mix as she is kidnapped and offered to the ape himself, for which he accepts. From here on, the film crew races to save Ann from Kong as he and the crew fight back enemies like dinosaurs and bugs until Ann is rescued, leaving our poor king alone and sad. This is until Kong escapes the confines of his area and goes to find her in the tribe, but he's unfortunately knocked out and taken prisoner by the film crew for presentation in New York City. When the hyperactivity of the theater and the people get to him, Kong goes nuts and breaks free, looking to find and stay with Ann as he does, giving them a nice home on top of the Empire State Building. This is until fighter planes appear and shoot and defeat Kong, leaving him to fall and die. Now, as you can see, the linear narrative is established pretty strongly with a promise and hook that follows up until we meet the ape himself. It's from this point that the actual plot becomes flimsy as hell. We don't get much time with the characters' inner workings as they fight and die to save Ann. We don't see Ann too much as she's carried by Kong, so we get a sense as to what she's feeling other than fear. There's a lot here compared to a typical movie that this one lacks. But is that a fault? No, because the reason it drops expected storytelling rules is because the filmmakers use the plot as a mere setup, getting ready to show off all the technology and mediums being used to make this ape 24 to 50 feet tall, to make this island and its creatures come to life, to be astonished by this new world that has come to life beautifully. They didn't just drop the ball because of a lack of talent, but because of wanting to showcase visual talent. This can be seen in films like Avatar, Aquaman, and Tenet. They all have flimsy, not-so-great plots that are just an excuse to show off their filmmaking. An additional part of creating this reality with filmmaking was the sound design. The team hired the then head of RKO Radio Pictures, Murray Spivak, to do the sound. Film historian Robert Armstrong states that Murray wanted Kong to have a distinct sound, so he recorded the roar of a lion and a tiger and had them play at different speeds as well as in reverse. In addition, Murray made grunts into a megaphone and recorded that as sounds for Kong. This combined and created the mighty, powerful, bombastic, and frightening sounds Kong makes, and each one is just as alluring as the last, creating a convincing menace and memorable sound for the film. This technique would follow onto every film, striving to heighten and express the characters and environments. This can be seen in something like Eraserhead with its never-ending ominous static, Dune with its whirring bug ships and echoes of wind, or Star Wars with its ships, lightsabers, and alien noises, making the world sound immersive and believable, like their visuals. Speaking of which, now we have to talk about the cream of the crop, the visual effects. It is insane how this is put together, especially for the time. The effects were headed by Willis H. O'Brien and consisted of using stop motion, matte paintings, and rear screen projection combined to make everything come to life. Kong himself is a stop motion creation, moved by hands one frame at a time. So how does this all work? Well, first, the backgrounds are highly detailed paintings, conveying the reality of the environment, or matte paintings. Then they projected off a mirror to a separate scene of actors doing whatever and paused a single frame of that along with Kong, and then they would play the reflection one frame and move Kong into a position in that frame and take a picture of it all for a complete frame, so they would have the people and Kong in the islands move simultaneously one frame at a time. creating the amazing flowing visual you see before you. This act of putting different visual aspects together is called compositing, which Brush Ninja writes is when different parts of a scene or character are put together to make a final picture. It's like putting together a puzzle, where each piece has its own color and shape, but when they're all put together, they create a beautiful picture. While the industry has adopted digital effects for decades, the act of compositing by making several separate visuals and animating them one frame at a time that blends into one another is a staple in visual effects that is seen in virtually every single blockbuster that we have come out. Whether it be a Marvel film and its animated characters crafted to align with the stand-in actors' movements, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where the characters were drawn one frame at a time onto the dead space of the raw footage so they could act opposite of Bob Hoskins, or going back to Star Wars with its matte paintings that resembles hallways, ships, or space, visual effects are absolutely everywhere in movies. And all that is thanks to the mighty Kong. Thanks to the filmmaker's innovative, groundbreaking approach to the filmmaking and insane success of the film, King Kong was responsible for creating the modern Hollywood blockbuster, with its plot that was just an excuse to show off what the crew was capable of making, sound that crafted a convincing menace and understandable environment, and multiple visual effects coming together to create a beautiful, beautiful picture. These are the filmmaking techniques and approaches established that follows into today's theatrical landscape. How? Well, let's look at a new film, another Kong picture actually. Earlier this year, Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire came out, and it had sound that crafted a convincing menace and environment for the Scar King and Hollow Earth, in addition to the leads Kong and Godzilla. Visual effects that composited real-life actors and sets with these apes and lizards to create a reality of these worlds colliding, even using a form of animation to craft the animals to be expressive and well realized, complete with close-ups of Kong reacting and giving a face much like the great-great-grand ape before him. And lastly, a flimsy plot about an evil ape in the core of the earth wanting to take over the surface that's really just an excuse to showcase its effects, tools for storytelling, and how hard the filmmakers want to go with these tools. King Kong climbed the Empire State Building so Luke could blow up the Death Star, so Neo could dodge bullets, and so Aquaman could fight his brother on top of the ship in the middle of the ocean with fish and merpeople spectators during a violent rainstorm. So thank you, Kong. Thank you for all you've brought onto the world and people are still working off of. It's a beautiful thing you've brought onto this world. And I love you, you beautiful luck.